Hi, and welcome to another episode of Live in the Rhythm, where we explore mindset, communication, and purposeful living, all to help you transform your life from the inside out and find a rhythm of life that works for you. So, today I am really excited to introduce you to my guest and dear friend, Barb Campbell. Barb is a tech talent strategist, and she is known for her ability to transform established careers and secure high paying tech roles. She's a certified coach and facilitator, and she leverages her 20 years experience as a trusted advisor and executive leader in a tech company. She converts ambitious professionals into high impact leaders. What I want to tell you about Barb is the real deal. She is walks the talk, and that's not just a phrase, but what she also does is she preaches what she practices. Very different because she has personally parlayed a 10 plus year, I think, sports marketing career into the high tech industry, which a lot of people would be like, no, you can't do that. Because I remember when I had parlayed also from engineering consulting into tech, and people would say, no, you're never going to be able to do that. I really think that this conversation is very timely and poignant because there's a lot going on in the marketplace these days. She has personally parlayed herself and her career. And not only that, but she's reinvented herself in the tech industry 7 different times in 13. That is a true testament to purposeful living. So Barb, welcome. I'm so excited. Our conversations are always off the charts.
Always the best, Pam. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me and your friendship, and just I've really appreciated over the years your advice, your words of wisdom, and the meaningful conversations we've been able to have for one another.
Yeah.
So,
So give a
yeah,
little history. So Barb and I met, oh gosh, I was looking back at 8 years ago. We're both executives in residence for one of the local universities, Cal State San Marcos, in their business professional development um, course, which I thought was so cutting edge at the time because no other university really prepares their beyond the book smarts into
yep.
like real life, how practical application. So that is something that we really bonded over. And one of the things that I've always admired about you, Barb, is your strong boundaries when it comes to family and career. Tell us, please, where did that come from? Had you always had strong boundaries?
No, I mean, like everyone else, I always say, you need a coach, you have a coach. If you're a coach, you need a coach. That took some coaching on my side, right? I think when I was younger and I didn't have the responsibility of a family, it was really easy to just throw myself 100% into my career, work overtime, right? Those are my 20s, stay late at the office, go for dinners, soak up what I could. And then in my 30s is when I started my family. And I would say my first boundary was after I got back from work with my first daughter was realizing I couldn't do the travel I was doing. It was hard on the family. It was hard dropping off at daycare, getting on the train, going up to LA for the day, worried about if I get back on time, right? So my first boundary would have been saying, no, I need a job that's internal facing. So I'm not doing that customer facing work because I knew we were going to expand the family. So I now have 3 daughters that keep me very busy. And I think as my family has grown and as I have grown, I just naturally took that kind of first boundary of this is what I want to do to making sure my career allowed for that time. And one of the things I've done recently is I work earlier because it works more for my time with my family. That's very sacred. So I try and start work at 7. Kids are on their own and they're very independent. They're very good at it. And
They're amazing.
they know that they get their mom fully and present, shortly after I pick them up from school. I have about 30 minutes more call, and then I get to fully immerse myself in whatever they are, drive them to their activities, do stuff at home, help with homework, whatever it is. And I've realized the more I've done that, the more people they do respect it, right? They know, and it has to be you that ultimately sets that boundary. Other people are not going to do it for you. If you have a wide open calendar, if you make yourself available for everything, people are going to take advantage of that. And so you have to stand in what is important to you and make sure people will know and you get that agreement around you. A lot of that comes from blocking your calendar
Awesome.
and really sticking and staying true to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I admire you for that because even early on in my career, I did make a lot of mistakes because I chased the title and the money, and I bought into the lie is like, if I don't do this, and it has a heavy cost.
It
So I
does.
sacrificed it early on. I had little ones and I was traveling a lot internationally. And like every 6 weeks, I was gone for a full week. And I just kept saying, well, being the primary breadwinner, I need to do this. And there are other ways. I wish at the time that I had a coach, I wish I had mentors and sponsors. That was in the 90s. So it's so much different now. And I think that there's still some lagging where people, because I think the clients that I work with, and I'm sure you do as well, is that still buy into that, like, I have to do this. And no, 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 the cost is too high personally. So when you started to create those boundaries when you had your first daughter, how easy or hard was it? Like, because you're a very strong woman, I know, and I admire a lot of your like no, your confidence and conviction.
It is leading from confidence. It wasn't easy at first because it felt like I was slowing down a bit, right? If you look at the trajectory I was on, you do have to sacrifice a bit. I always people call it work-life balance. I call it work-life trade-offs, right? When you
That's what we
start
call rhythm.
Yeah, when you start to put a little more in this basket's gonna get a little more depleted, and so you have to be okay with that. So I think it took some time and practice, and I think honestly it's come with age. Like now I'm in my mid-40s, and there's just so much freedom in saying no, having those boundaries, blocking like I block my time for my workouts too sacredly. Like do not block over that time, right? That is my time. You're gonna get a better version of me if I am able to do the things I need to. And of course, there's times it doesn't work out. There's times you have to move things around. But I would say 95% of the time, I'm able to stick with that. And I get agreement and I'm very honest with it with my manager, right? Like I take a workout every day. I'm not going to be, you won't be able to reach me unless there's an emergency. You just communicate the expectations to make sure, again, I think I said that you have that agreement around you
Yeah.
because otherwise people will just, you show up online. We're so accessible now. We use Slack at work and that just is so easy to just jump on at any time at night. I have to put away on my Slack now. That's a practice I've consciously done where I'm no longer available past this time because I don't want it to cut into that time, right? Because then I'm not setting those boundaries. So challenging at first, but as you age and you start to go with what's more important, right? I realized I can still have the career I want and thrive, but part of that thriving comes from having all that other stuff around me that the career has provided for. So it really is that nice, shall we say, balance of I can be that Wonder Woman, right? And I can climb my way, but it's gonna look a little different. It's gonna look a little
Yeah.
different.
You mentioned something about when we talked about boundaries, and what I'm a big proponent of as well is when we do create our boundaries, if we're not honoring them, nobody else will. And so you also talked about communication. This is what a lot of the show is about is mindset, communication, and purposeful living. So when you communicate, and I know that at first when we start to create boundaries and go, okay, here's my workout time, here's my time with the kids, then not to keep it secret because you know what happens is if we're keeping things hush hush and we're not communicating, then we're looking over our shoulder and going, oh my gosh, we're going to be found out, right? So, how do you and did you effectively communicate what your boundaries are, what's working, what's not working? So that way you get that agreement with your boss, with your peers, and with your
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to exactly what you said. I would set a boundary and I would go for my workout, but I would still have my phone out. And I'd get every time I'd get up to have, some water. And even the owner of the studio, she's like, Barb, you need to focus on the workout. So once I kind of went to my boss and said, listen, like I did keep it a secret. I was kind of like, well, I'm still online. So technically, but then I'm not coming back refreshed. I'm angry. Not, I'm not getting the intention of what the workout was supposed to do, which was to provide that much needed break. In my one-on-ones with my boss, I just communicated, because I have a new boss now and I have to do it every time I have a new boss. This is my schedule. You're going to get me when I am on, and you're going to get me for 110, 150%. Absolutely. What I need to achieve that is to have these breaks and these boundaries. One is my time. So I've switched my hours from PST to CST to start earlier. I found that that really worked for me over the summer. And then I just kind of continued it. I love getting up in the morning. I'm more productive in the morning. So why not put my hours around that? And I find, I don't know why it is, maybe it's since school, like if you never get out of that rhythm at 3 o'clock, I feel like my brain shuts off for a bit. Like it's not for me. And so I'll shut off. And what I tell my boss too is I'll be available like later tonight when the kids are in bed. I'll have a look through things just before I go to bed, and if there's anything that needs that attention, I'll be available then. And so communicating that and making sure they're on board for that, because if I had a boss who wasn't on board for that, it might look a little different and I might need to look at something else. And that's another boundary, right? If they can't honor that and they know the kind of worker I am, and trust me, it takes a while to build that mutual trust, right? So you have to, in order to communicate that, you have to have demonstrated that they're willing to do that for you because they know they're going to get the best version of you if they allow that flexibility. And same thing with my team. I'll let them know when I'm out of pocket, or I'll just write on Slack, out of office. It's just like a little thing on my thing, back at this time, and that's it. And then so anything else can wait. I don't need that instantaneous. Things can wait an hour. It's okay, right? Like the sky's not going to fall.
Yeah. And what you had shared, what you found is your productive times. This is also really important because everyone has a different rhythm. Circadia rhythm. Some people are better in the morning. Some people have really productive times in the mid afternoon. And I remember when I was in tech as well, some of the engineers, their productive time was like 7 to 10 or something like that. And the thing is that when you find that time and your own rhythm, because it's all about managing your energy, not your time, you can be so much more productive in that shorter period of time. So when you know that, and it comes from that self-awareness initially, and know thyself, so that way we can confidently communicate to other people from a place of strength to say, this is where you are going to get me 150%, whatever you agree to, and saying that with confidence and conviction. And then really, actions speak louder than words. So you have to match the actions and be in integrity and making certain that that's how you're building that trust with your leader.
Yeah.
It was interesting because you said that it takes that trust. So share, because I'm confident that there are people going, yeah, that sounds all great. How do I do that? How have you in the past had to manage up in
Yes.
terms of your boundaries and your productivity and your rhythm that works the best for you that may not be the same rhythm as your boss?
Yeah, just before we leave that last point though, I did wanna mention, because you were kind of going through, just to wrap up the boundaries. One of the things I also did, because you said sometimes are more productive for other people, and how do I do that with my peers? I talked about it with my manager. I actually do an exercise as a high impact teaming facilitator where you find out what people's working styles are, and you go. So I know all the working styles of everyone on my team. Do they like the detail? Do they like more of the big picture? Are they a morning person? Are they an afternoon person? Do they want you to be interrupted by you if there's something really important, or they prefer it to happen? So it's so important that not only I am communicating my things, but I am also receptive of what they need as well. And that would be both with my peers, my team, right? And also up with my manager, which kind of leads me into your next question with managing up. I'm an over communicator. In a good way. How I've really built trust is every time I have a one-on-one with any manager, and I've done this with all my managers, even with their different working styles, I take everything that's their goals for the year. So we have this thing at my company called a V2 Mom, and it's all your measures, metrics, vision for the entire year. And that thing trickles down, and then we all have sponsors for different initiatives. But obviously, it's very important to the company. And it's very important to my managers to achieve those things. So they put people in charge of things. So I use my one-on-one to communicate where I am on all of those things. What are the things I'm working on? What are the things I've committed to doing? How am I progressing? Where am I stuck? And I use that as kind of my guide because if I get new things and I get asked, and I'm here for it. If there's something new that sounds exciting, great. That comes at a cost to all the other things we've prioritized for the year. So if you're giving me something new that is not on my list, where does that fit into the priority? And what can drop off in
Yeah.
order for me to achieve that? And kind of what's that order? So I would say a lot of managing up is not only the communication, but helping them prioritize what you're working on. And you're kind of intrinsically doing that because you know the things you want to work on, but you're just not overextending yourself. So you burn yourself up and then you're committed to the most important things for them and for you.
Yeah. What a breath of fresh air, though, Barb, because I know in my tenure back in corporate America, that kind of stuff didn't exist. So how did you get to that point? What was the turning point for you where you're modeling an incredible way to be transparent to that communication, to the boundaries, to your team members? Because we know that, you know, talk is cheap. And if
Yes.
you're not practicing it as a leader and actually modeling it, it's out of integrity. So what was the turning point for you to, you've got a lot of rigor in that. And so share a bit.
Yeah, think I think where it came is realizing where I was out of integrity with myself and what I had set out as my goals, right? And then when you notice you start getting irritated by things or people pile things onto you and you're kind of projecting outwards and you're mad at them, but really like you're out of integrity with yourself and the things you agreed to do. And now you're out of balance and now you're mad and no one's happy and it's a good look. So that came from a lot of coaching, honestly, right? I didn't do it myself as I said, like I am a coach, but I also need to be coached. I'm actually speaking to my coach later today after this. So it was really kind of recognizing that this isn't working. I'm mad about something. I need to figure out where that gap is and why. And when I started realizing maybe I was working on things I didn't want to, well, Bart, did you communicate that? Like, because I'm a yes I'm a people pleaser. I want to make people happy. My boss gives me something. I'm your go-to person. I will do everything. And now I've got to the point where I remember when I was just designing my recent job, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, where it's everything I want to do, where all of a sudden I got something else thrown at me. And I was like, no, that's not mine. I have someone in mind for that. I will help sponsor and I will be a mentor to that person, but they are going to own the outcome of that because that wasn't on my list and it's not what I want to do.
That is so, so good because I think let's go back for a moment and I really want to nail this point. And it's really a tip is when you start becoming irritable, when you feel that something is off, because I'll tell you, when I was in my corporate role, I also did the people pleasing. I said yes because I thought that that's what they wanted me to do. But then what happened was I would go home and no longer need to put up that great big smile. And the family is the one that gets the rest of what. So we give the best of us at work and then they get the rest of us. And I think that for those who are tuning in that may not have that ability to slow down yet, this is this is your message. Slow down.
Go
Because if
down.
you're not slowing down enough to be self-aware of irritabilities and not projecting and blaming, because that's where we have that ability to then change things.
Yeah. And look at yourself over a week, right? Like anyone can do this. You don't need a coach because I know there are some people can afford it's fine, right? There's a way you can kind of self coach and self monitor just even through listening to this, right? So have a look at a week and write down every time something comes up for you, right? And at the end of that week, have a look and it's not adding anything extra to your day. You're just taking note. You can do it in your phone, right? You can do it through AI. You can do whatever. There's so many different ways of doing this that make it really easy. And then have a look at the end of the week of all those things. What do they have in common, right? Like, What is it that you didn't like about it? Was it the work? Was it the partnership and the people you were working with? What was it? And then start seeing those trends and those patterns. And then you need to, now that you have self awareness, now you need to communicate it when you're meeting with your manager about the kind of work that you're doing. Right. And it's not, you can't do it, your first 6 months on the job, right? Like that's very, you got to come in, you got to do that proving, right? Like those are things that kind of come with time and place once you've kind of mastered your role and you're really looking to move towards more of the work you'd like to do once you've established yourself a little more. And then you start, bringing things up. And you're not always going to get everything you want. I still do work that I like doesn't 100% fill my cup,
Of
but I
course.
have enough of that other work that fills my cup that it's just enjoyable. Like I look forward to going back to work. I'm on vacation right now, but I'm like excited to start. I've actually decided this week I'm going to do a bit of work to get ahead of things because my kids are at a camp. I have some flexibility. It's quiet. I can think. So I want to actually start thinking about my plans for next year. What are my goals for next year? I have this downtime. I never have it. So use it to do that planning even for myself, right?
Yeah, and the fact that you're coming at it from a place of rest versus,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
energy. But one thing you mentioned, you said you're not to do this in the first 6 months. One thing I wanna caution though, because a lot of the times, the first 90 days actually is really important. If we say yes to everything, we are setting a precedent that we cannot sustain. So there's a delicate dance that has to go on in terms of you saying yes with reason, with boundaries,
Yes.
and not to be the Pavlov's dog is every time that phone rings, you're answering right away because then are you going to be able to sustain that or build resentment to go, shoot, you know? So how do you usually work with clients on that? Like what's your advice on that?
Well, I think it's maybe you're not communicating it just yet. You're figuring out what is the stuff you want to do, right? And are you having the conversations? I say when you join a company, you should be networking right away. You should be expanding. You shouldn't just be focused on the task at hand. You have this incredible network, an invaluable network. This could be job one of, like as you said, I've had how many different roles at Salesforce, right? What are the different ways, what are the different people you could be talking to, and having coffee chats? I'm a big proponent of that, which is how I landed in designing my role around coaching, is just by having conversations with other people. So be open to other things, but also be observant of from the get-go of the work you enjoy, so you can start to kind of build that repository. So when you're getting a little more comfortable, because and then when I said 6 months, I would say, here at my role, it usually takes a good 6 months until you feel comfortable with what you're doing. It looks very different at different companies. So usually there's a mastery that comes, right? And so, yeah, it's going to look different for everyone, but it doesn't mean you can't be spending some time on that inward reflection of, all right, I've been here for 6 months. What are all the things I did enjoy doing? What do I want to see more of when I'm building my plan for next year? What are all the things I'd like to do again or I don't want to do again?
Yeah. And that's beautiful about how you really have been intentional and purposeful. Share with us from sports marketing for a decade or a little
Yeah.
more into tech. Give us the highlights of had you always had this foresight of this is where I want to be? And for those that may be looking to change industries, like what can you share some of the story of like how you intentionally and purposefully transitioned?
There's some intention and then there's some stumbling across things. It's a mix of both. I'm not gonna, it's you don't know what you don't know. So I would say, I grew up in a family where everyone knew exactly what they wanted to do. My dad was a lawyer, my mom was a teacher, my brother's a lawyer, my sister's a social worker. So everyone was like, this is what I'm doing in college, this is what, and then along comes me. I'm the baby of the family. And, comes time to graduate, high school, what are you doing next? And I'm like, well, clearly I'm going to college because everyone went to college. What am I doing? And it was like, and I remember it was a friend that said to me, "Well, don't do arts. Like, if you're not sure, at least do business to have some grounding in business, and that'll probably help you later on." So I chose that out of, okay, it sounds maybe it'll fit me better than arts. So I went with business, and then I chose marketing because I was like, oh, marketing's sexy, it's fun. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I did in sports marketing, and being an athlete, I was a college athlete. I played volleyball. turned that into my career. So I was a sports marketing rep at my college. I worked at the Sports Hall of Fame over the summer. I was very intentional about what graduated, very similar to our program at Cal State San Marcos. I spent the back 2 years of being there getting the job experience so that when I left, my resume would have that padding and cushioning. So went into sports marketing. I would say it didn't happen right away. I actually worked for myself. I consulted, but I did it in the sports realm. I worked for the 2010 Olympics, helping bring the bid to Vancouver. I was for a nonprofit. It was so fun. It was right what I wanted to do. And that kind of led, there was just opportunities abounded from there. From sports marketing, which to me was in my 20s, traveled all the stadiums, I'd fly in early, go ski. I mean, it was for a 20-year-old who didn't have a family, right? And all that response. It was
Dream job.
amazing. Yeah, it was a dream job. Go to all the sports games, right? Packers, like all these sports. It was amazing. And then after 10 years of that, the company actually closed up shop. And so I found myself, what is the next thing that I could do? And I ended up, there was someone in this way I always tell my students at Cal State San Marcos or anyone, you never know when that relationship is going to, show up in a way that you wouldn't have expected. You never know if that person sitting next to you in class or that person you're working with, you know, end up being a decider of your next role, right? Or just being a catalyst for something. So someone I went to college with, and I would watch this person fly all over the country and fly outside the country, go to Switzerland, meet with all these amazing brands. I'm like, what is this person doing? And so I looked up the company, and then I was very intentional about what is the kind of role that I could do at this company? Because it seemed like it had that same appeal of sports, but it was a little different. And what would it be? And it was called a customer success manager. Well, today, you and I both know that that role is abundant. Everyone uses it. I would say Salesforce was probably one of the originators of the role, 15 years ago, because I've been here almost 14 years now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so I found whatever those parallels, and I talk to my clients now who want to get into tech and haven't had that background of what are those skills or parallels. So the parallels were the clients that I had worked with, the Fortune 500 companies. And then I did a lot of account management over there, which seemed very similar to what I could customer success management. So I ended up applying, and the person I was telling you about, the resume came across their desk at some point during the interview process. And one of the people were like, do you know this person? He's like, oh yeah, I went to college with her. He's like, she seems like she's a person, she'd probably do great at it. So again, like there was an endorsement there. And I ended up there, and I haven't left because
Wow.
it's been a fantastic ride.
That is so good. I remember when I would get bored for me in my career, I would get bored after about 2 years of master's. I'm like, oh, next, next. And back in the day, that was frowned upon. So I thought,
Yeah.
okay, where can I go? So this was about as strategic as I got at the time. Where can I go? What kind of a company? I too business marketing, but truth be told, when I get out of high school into college, I'm like, what's the major that you're in charge of fun? I just want that one. Just like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
great at events, planning
Yes.
theme park, all that. Just want charge of fun. And so I started looking around, and it was those tech companies that you could reinvent yourself and navigate. And I'm like, oh, it's big enough that I can, transform myself every couple of years once I got bored and mastered it without having to leave the company, without having to, move my 401k and all this other kind of stuff. And I too had, I say the luxury, but it was actually, it was a great ride in tech I think I did like 6 or 8 promotions in 13 years or 12 years myself. So the intentionality, once you got into Salesforce, like share a little bit about that purposeful and how you're able to have both and is what I say, because how you've been able to parlay what you're doing now and have both, it's like you've expanded your capacity because you're actually in your zone of genius and your sweet spot right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, it feels like that because as I said, I'm happy. Normally
Yeah.
Monday comes around and people are like, oh, and don't get me wrong, I love my weekends, but I look forward to work. And when there's work I want to do when I'm on holiday, that tells me something, right? There's something very intentional. So how I kind of parlayed was really, I think when we did Cal State San Marcos, kind of going back to that self-discovery, and I tell my clients this all the time too, because I think a lot of people go through the motions. So, like when I shared with my family, all knew what they wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I didn't create this future. And if I had had a coach, like you were a coach in the program and I was a coach in the program, I probably would have picked something to do with talent development, right? Or, something very similar to what I'm doing now, but that wasn't available back then.
Yeah.
Organizational behavior, right?
Yeah.
That would have been my sweet spot. But when we did Cal State San Marcos, I think you did it too. I did that career leader assessment. And that thing, and I still talk about it to this day,
Yeah.
that was my light bulb moment. So for anyone listening who's been stuck or like, I like what I do, but I don't know what I want to do next. How do I get there? And how do I kind of create what I want in my role? You need to do that self-discovery, that introspection. And that's just one. You can do strengths finders, which you've done as well. That's a great one. But the career leader tells you, here's your interest, here's your motivators, here's all the skills you have. So you can easily see which gaps you have as well. And then it tells you the kind of culture fit that you want. And it also spits out the kind of roles that you'd be really good at. And remember, the students spend the whole semester studying their top 3 roles. And what
Yes.
do? They do informational interviews. They do, right? They get out there. They have to do a presentation. They have to research and spend time and understand what is the future of this job outlook. And then they have to write a paper at the end and choose one if they're, of the 3. And so I did the course along with them that 8 years ago. And doing that thing, it kept telling me, hey, Barb, you're a coach and a mentor. I'm like, yeah. That's the fluffy stuff. That's
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
there. I do it, but it's not who I am. And then I just started getting curious and exploring it. So I started doing informational interviews. I looked up, I always tell us, I use my org chart at my company all the time. And I wrote in, because you can put in titles. And I wrote in, and I would find people who had that as a title. I was like, I didn't even know we have those here. And so I'd start having coffee chats with people. And then an opportunity opened up to be an internal coach there, and have a program and get certified in it. And then I went on to get my secondary one as well. So I could do spot coaching in this. And then I found out through a coffee chat, I found out about high impact teaming facility. And I'm like, that sounds fantastic. And so I got to fly up to San Francisco when we had this thing that was called the Ranch. And people would go there to do that self-discovery workshops, to take a beat, take a breath. And I got to like go up there and do that stuff and facilitate sessions. It was incredible. And the more I did that stuff, going back to that list I said of noticing where, maybe things are out of integrity for you, you should also be noticing where you're lit up and you're living that true authentic self. And it was all the stuff I was doing around coaching. So I just kept seeking out those things and it became my brand. And I remember a distinct conversation with a new leader. We moved into a new org 2 years ago. And my first conversation with a skip level, they were a SVP at the time, and they just wanted to get to know me and didn't want to talk any work. But what I did is I used the last 30 seconds and I did an elevator pitch. And I said, I know we haven't talked about work. This will be I just want you to know who I am and what you can expect from me. And I told them I'm a high impact teaming facilitator. I've been trained as an internal coach. If you ever have a need for anyone to come in to help facilitate workshops, I am your person. Reach out to me. And that happened. It happened. It's happened a year later. And I went out there and I actually got to facilitate a workshop with my boss and their peers because things weren't working. And so I had to come in as not, Barb, the employee of this person, but Barb as coach, facilitator, committed
Beautiful.
the change. And that's what I started getting seen as. And so now the joke is I have my own emoji and it's called Coach Barb, and it's everywhere. And people will just put the emoji with my head. It's Coach Barb.
With their own bobblehead doll.
Love a bobblehead. That's fun. And it's what I embody. And even recently, this year we moved to as part of that V2 Mama I mentioned, we have a focus on year of career. Well, what a fantastic opportunity because I'm a coach, but my focus and my niche, which I found I found I want to be a coach. What kind of coach do I want to be? Talk to people, do it. So now I'm a career coach and I career coach at a company outside of Salesforce called Kadima. And I help people like we did in the business professional development program. But at my job now, with year of career as a focus, I'm like, fantastic. And all these opportunities arose. So now I sponsor it. I've sponsored it for the year. And I got to lead workshops with another person who's also a coach. And then we had like 3,000 people attend. And we
Right.
got to make a difference for them of like how they could personally brand. We got to tell our stories so that if that was something they wanted to do, the people who are lit up, inspired, like that's why I do it. People would reach out and go, "Can I talk to you? Can I pick your brain?" Yes, yes, please do, because I got to do that with other people. So now it's my turn
Yeah.
to give back what I've learned, and I love it. I love it.
And that's why I said you actually preach what you practice.
Yes.
This is the difference that sets you apart from so many other people because we can be all in our head and teachy preachy, but you have actually practiced it. You've
Yeah.
done this all before you got where you're at right now. And I think it's such a beautiful example where you're doing both and.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned is a coffee conversation or coffee chat. This is one of the things, and I think informational interviews, that's what they used to be called. And I also deal with Navy SEALs and Special Forces, helping them transition. We call them cups of coffee because, in all honesty, it's less threatening than an interview because an interview sounds. So, for those of you listening, grab a cup of coffee with someone and have that. Hey, I just want to explore and be curious because the people who you ask are most people are more than happy to have those conversations and share their wisdom to see if there's a fit. That's what you wanna do initially. Is there a fit? Don't ever say, "Well, what do you like about it?" Because what that person likes about it and you're totally different. But tell me about a typical day. Where
Yeah.
do you spend most of your time? Because our energy is our own. And so every one of us gets energized from different things. So some of the questions is tell me a typical day. Where are you spending most of your time? Is it solo time and independent or are you with teams? Think and listen for those things that know that you are energized by. Um, what do you like about it and what don't you like about it? Because that's really subjective.
I love that you said that, and that's where going back to that self-assessment discovery, that's why it's so important for you to know what you like and don't like, because then you can actually cater your questions around that. So not just saying, "What is a day like?" Do you work overtime? If work-life balance, right? Balance, trade-offs is so important to you, you need to find, are they working weekends? Are they work, like, what does that look like? And then maybe find out if they have boundaries, because maybe they're just working because they enjoy, right? And they're not, but you can really intentionally go, here's my checklist of things that's important to me in a company culture, or in a role, right? Or working on a team. And does this role have it? It's so exploratory and so fun. And I've honestly, the person I got to partner with this summer, on our series that we did, our career development series. I mean, we had a coffee chat probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and it didn't, right? And again, not having those relationships and then not knowing where it's gonna go, and at the time, she was a CSM, and I was in my existing role, and then she pivoted to managing employee programs, recognition, all that stuff, so she pivoted. She was also a career coach, and then it kinda came full circle that, "Wait a second, we share this common passion. What could we put our heads together and do?" And it was 4 years after that initial coffee chat, so I would say go into coffee chat and don't be discouraged if something doesn't happen right then. Keep that relationship, nurture that relationship, reach out every once in a while.
Yeah. And that's it. And have those are um transformational relationships, not transactional. Here's the thing. Early in my career, I was like, what can I get? What can I get? And I was more in that controlling, like, how am I going to control the outcome? But with age comes wisdom is to your point, Barb, your first role was from a college classmate. We never know where these relationships, so when you can be authentic in your relationships and have them transformational versus transactional, people can feel that energy. It makes all the difference in the world. Really,
Yeah.
really important. And it comes around. So keep that nurturing and have those conversations. And what you had mentioned is because you're doing both and when you're doing what you love and managing your energy, you're energized by it, you have greater capacity. So
You
here
do.
it's not what can I get rid of? You're actually in the expansive mode because you have secure boundaries with around your family and what inspires you and also what you need to fill yourself up. And then the work that you're able to do is because you were purposeful in identifying what energizes you. So all of this is such a beautiful recipe for how people can set themselves apart in the
I
market.
love I love that, and it just reminded me of the expression that kind of got me into boundaries, and it was, if it was a coach, a program, or a book. There's so many things I've done, but it was, what can you say no to allow more yeses to show up for the things you want to do? And that was so powerful to me and so transformational because, and you experienced this as well. We've talked about it. I was such a yes person, having it reframed, right? Like to me, no was negative, but having it reframed of, when you say no, more of the things you would like to say yes to are available to you. That was so powerful. I literally that day, and I think it definitely was a program I was in. I wrote down that very right after I got out of the course. Here are all the things where I am out of integrity, that I'm not, that I'm giving my energy to, but I'm giving the wrong energy to. I need to get out of them now. And I had all these checkbox things. I was on this women and customer success council and all these great things. Oh, I was getting annoyed, right? I was doing a lot of the events and organizing things, but I felt like I was putting a lot more of myself than other people were. And I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. So I wrote an email that day and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to back out of this. I will finish this next commitment, but it's not serving me anymore. So powerful. And people respected it. Like I thought they were going to be disappointed. They're like, could we call? They just wanted to have a conversation. And then they understood it. It was amazing, amazing.
See, when you make that final decision, because I remember, and I use this on myself as well, as those maybes, is the maybes when we're riding the rail of indecision. Oh, well, I'm going to do this, and it's sucking my energy. Once you make that decision and have permission to say, no, that doesn't serve me anymore, it opens up so much energy that propels you in the direction that serves you better. So you have high impact, high energy activities and responsibilities that allow you to have the capacity to do more of what you love. And that is so empowering. And that
Freedom. And and there used to be a guilt to saying no. And even recently, this is a personal example, but in my daughter's life, of course I get involved with things, and it works the same way it works at my job, right? Like I get involved with things. People are like, oh, we want more of this. Can you do this? No. So I'm involved with the PTSA, but I've been asked recently, I chose an event. I got to do a holiday dance. I got to enroll all my friends in it. We got together of the holidays. We had a great time. I had someone who was crafty. I found all the people who are good at all the stuff. Decor, right? That person, oh, amazing parties. And I remember the person from the PTA saying, well, Barb, what are you doing? I said, well, I brought you everyone. I brought you this amazing group, and I will help organize and everything. But then after that, it was such a successful event. They had more people attend that than any event they had done. It was just like a couple weeks ago. They're like, would you actually consider being on the board of the PTA next year? And my answer was no. No, like it sounds great, but I don't want the politics, the time. It doesn't serve me. And I'm so much better at enrolling people in things, volunteer. I would rather spend my time not being on this thing and dealing with the politics and doing the budgeting and all that. I want to do the fun things, back to having fun, right? I'm doing all that stuff in my job. I want to do the fun things. I want to show up and volunteer for all the field trips. I want
yeah,
to do all that. I don't need to do it all. And it's totally fine.
yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe when they ask me next year, things look a little different. Maybe it's a yes, but right now it's a no. And it's so powerful. And I don't feel guilty about it. Not one bit.
It's so good. And see, and it follow the energy. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I want to throw parties. I want to throw parties.
On your terms. See, you're such a high influencer, though. When we understand that, is that your strength, your energy is about influencing and getting stuff done through other people, and you motivate and you attract and all of that, and stay in that spot.
Yeah.
That's so good. It doesn't mean that Barb has to touch every little thing and be the executor, but this
No.
again comes down to knowing your greatest strengths, the value that you offer. Hey, I'm honored that you're asking me, but it has to be a no. And that's the kind of communication that is strong, confident, and empowering. But it also gains respect. Because when you
Well, and
know,
it translates to your employees. Now now I empower my employees to what are the things you want to do? My first conversation, I inherited 2 new people this year is, what do you want to do? What do you want to, we started having these amazing conversations, and they had been with a previous manager before and never had those conversations. And all of a sudden you have these people that one of them now, was kind of coasting. We got her promotion and now she wants to be a future people leader, but that wasn't there for her 6 months ago. I'm trying to find the work that aligns her for that success. I'm making sure she's doing the programs, right? And then I had this other person that, was happy just doing their role. But now they're starting looking at all the other people on my team and they're going, well, what is that person doing to get promoted? And what is that? Like, what do I need to do? I'm like, I love that you asked me that question. Let's talk about what that looks like for you. Right. So my team now gets to be very intentional and I'm aligned to what they want to do. So I find those opportunities, but they have to show up. They have to show up right with that same mentality and putting it into it and earning that trust for those future opportunities. I
That's
love
what I
the
love.
kind of yeah, trickling down.
I love about what you're doing because you're raising the bar by you modeling the kind of transparent um, leadership, creating boundaries, knowing your energy. You are raising the bar. So people are now who may have been coasting and just collecting a paycheck because we all know that happened. They're now stepping up. What can I do? And that's the beauty of like your team is so wow, that you're the value that you're giving them, they're blessed to have you as a leader because of what you inspire in other people, and you can't force people to do that.
You can't force people, and I was gonna add to it, my journey isn't everyone else's journey, right? Just because I want to be a people leader and everything else, my power in being a leader and being able to create those opportunities. It's figuring out what they want to do. And I do have someone on my team who's like, give those opportunities to the people that want to write. I don't want to be the ladder climber, but I've taught that person, you don't have to be the ladder climber, but like there's opportunities as you go out to make more money, do different things, right? Like you can have a better performance review, which gives you better, better finances. So if you don't want to be a people leader, that's fine, but let's work towards that. Let's work on your brand. Let's make sure you're getting the accolades. And so it's meeting people where they're at, seeing what that potential is though as well. And you learn to like push people but then if someone's like their boundary is like, I'm good, I wanna coast, great. But like how can you powerfully coast and make more money and be more visible and get more of the opportunities you want to? So you're enjoying the work as you're quote
Yeah,
unquote coasting, right?
yeah, and leading by example is so great. Okay, we could talk forever and ever. What I would love if we can, because we're coming to the end of this, what is one piece of advice that you can leave the audience with that would be impactful for them?
Your dream job, I think people sometimes have this idea of, I have to figure out what I wanna do, and it's gotta look a certain way.
Mhm.
I invite you to explore what's possible, and then there's power in creating what you wanna do, because my title doesn't say anything about Coach Barb, right? But that's become my brand and who I am, and I don't need to be 100% coach as my role
Mhm.
to coach and how I show up as a leader, as a manager, and all of that. It's become who I am. So if I can invite people to do that self discovery, to tap into their power and look for those opportunities where they are, because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And you might surprise yourself that where you are might be exactly where you need to be. It just might need to look a little different on your terms for the things that light you up. No, don't give up. Don't give up until you've really truly explored what is possible. And if you have that support to do more of the work you want to do, you might be pleasantly surprised that you just weren't focused on the right things. You're in the right place. You're just not focused on your full potential and at the work that lights you up. And it could be right under your fingertips, right? But your boss doesn't know it because you've never communicated it because you haven't done that self reflection. So spend more time. And then you are like, when you start doing that self discovery, I always tell everyone, you are the subject of the work. You are everything else you take or you do is for someone else, right? The company has their goals. That's for someone else. So when you start focusing on you, You are the topic and the subject of that work. So put into it what you want to get out of it. We always brush it aside, right? Oh, I'll do that later. You have to make the time for it. If it's once a month, start there. If right, set aside an hour on a Friday, right? Whenever your low day is, or
Yeah.
whenever you have that freedom to do that, and make sure you're spending time on you. Am I happy in what I'm doing? Do I not like what I'm doing? What do I really want to do? Now's a great time. Like, what do you guys want for 2026? Are you happy where you're at? Or do you want to like explore what's possible if you're doing more of this work you love?
Yeah. It's so beautiful. Slow down to move faster in the right direction. Remember that life is not a race, it's a dance.
Hmm.
Until next time, find your rhythm and live it. Thanks for joining us.